Every year, millions of people do something that would have sounded absurd 20 years ago. They voluntarily disconnect themselves from the place where everyone else seems to be gathering. No dramatic announcement, no public farewell. One day their profile simply disappears. No Instagram, no TikTok, no X, no Facebook, gone. And whenever someone deletes social media, the same question usually follows. What happened? People assume there must have been a reason, a breakup, burnout, a mental health crisis. Some kind of personal collapse. Because in a world where being online has become the default state, leaving feels almost suspicious. But psychology suggests something more interesting. Deleting social media isn't always about escaping something. Sometimes it's about reclaiming something. Attention. For most of human history, attention belonged almost entirely to the individual. You decided what deserved your focus. You decided what entered your mind. Today, that relationship has reversed. Entire industries compete for slices of your attention every second. Every notification, every recommendation, every infinite scroll, every carefully designed algorithm, all fighting for the same limited resource, your awareness. And awareness is surprisingly valuable. Psychologists often describe attention as the gateway to experience. Whatever consistently captures your attention eventually shapes your reality, not because it's important. Because your brain assumes that repeated exposure means importance. This creates a strange situation. Many people spend hours every day consuming information they never consciously chose. News they didn't seek, arguments they don't care about, videos they won't remember tomorrow. Yet somehow the time disappears anyway, and eventually some people begin noticing something unsettling. They feel busy all day, but struggle to identify what actually occupied their minds. This is where social media fatigue often begins, not with exhaustion, with awareness. The realization that attention has quietly become fragmented. Researchers studying digital behavior have repeatedly found that constant interruptions reduce our ability to remain focused on a single task. Even brief notifications can leave what psychologists call an attention residue. Part of the mind stays attached to the interruption long after it ends. Which means the cost of social media isn't always the time spent scrolling. Sometimes it's the attention that never fully returns afterward. But attention is only part of the story. Because social media doesn't just compete for focus, it changes comparison. Humans have always compared themselves to others. The difference is scale. A few hundred years ago, you compared yourself to people in your village. Today, you compare yourself to the most attractive people on earth, the most successful, the most talented, the wealthiest. The luckiest, all before breakfast. Psychologist Leon Festinger proposed social comparison theory in 1954. The basic idea was simple. People evaluate themselves partly by comparing themselves to others. The theory was developed long before smartphones existed. Yet social media may be one of the most powerful comparison machines ever created, because the comparisons never end. Someone is always earning more, traveling more, achieving more, looking better. Living better, or at least appearing to. The brain struggles to distinguish between reality and curation. It sees the images, the celebrations, the milestones, and quietly updates its standards. Not all at once, gradually, almost invisibly. For some people, deleting social media becomes less about reducing screen time and more about stepping outside a comparison loop they no longer want to participate in. And then there's the identity problem. Social media encourages something humans have never had to do before: maintain a permanent version of themselves for public viewing, a profile, a personal brand. A digital self. Even people who claim not to care often spend time managing how they're perceived. Which photo to upload, which opinion to share, which parts of life deserve visibility. Over time, some people begin feeling an uncomfortable split. The person online starts feeling different from the person offline. Not fake, just incomplete, a curated version, a highlight reel. Psychologists sometimes describe this as self-presentation, the process of shaping how others perceive us. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. Humans have always done it. But social media allows self-presentation to operate continuously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for years. Eventually, some people become tired of maintaining the performance. Not because they're dishonest, Because performing any identity indefinitely requires energy. Deleting social media can feel surprisingly similar to leaving a stage. Not because the audience was hostile, because the audience was always there. What's fascinating is that many people who quit social media report something unexpected. At first, they miss it. The habit remains, their thumb still reaches for the app. Moments of boredom suddenly feel uncomfortable. The silence feels strange. This isn't weakness, it's conditioning. Behavioral psychologists have long known that intermittent rewards create some of the strongest habits in existence. You don't know what the next refresh will reveal. A message, a like, a comment. A viral post, the uncertainty keeps the brain engaged. The same psychological mechanism appears in gambling systems, not because social media is gambling. Because unpredictability is highly effective at capturing attention. And when people remove social media, they aren't just deleting an app, they're interrupting a reward cycle. Which explains why the first few days often feel harder than expected. But here's the part people rarely talk about. Deleting social media doesn't automatically make life better. It doesn't instantly create happiness. It doesn't solve loneliness. It doesn't magically improve focus. Removing a distraction only creates empty space. The real question is what fills that space afterward. Some people replace scrolling with reading. Others with work, exercise, relationships, creative projects, real conversations. And some simply replace one app with another. The psychology isn't really about social media itself. It's about attention finding a new home, which leads to an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe the people who delete social media aren't rejecting technology. Maybe they're making a decision about what deserves access to their minds, because attention is finite, time is finite. Life is finite, and eventually everyone is forced to answer the same question. What is worth spending consciousness on? The psychology of people who delete social media isn't necessarily about discipline, or self-improvement, or superiority. It's often something simpler, a realization. That if attention shapes reality, then choosing where attention goes might be one of the most important decisions a person ever makes. And for some people, that decision begins with a single button. Delete account.